When my two older brothers kicked me out of our family home in the pouring rain, I felt completely destroyed. I was holding my final letter, seconds away from ending everything. But by age 28, I had built a six-figure online business from nothing. My brothers never saw it coming. You won't believe how my life completely changed from that cold, wet night to becoming more successful than I ever dreamed possible. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening in the comments. My name is Ryan. I'm the youngest of three brothers. Marcus is 32. David is 30. I'm 26 now, but this story starts 2 years ago when I was 24 and living at home. At that time, I was working part-time at a local restaurant, waiting tables and washing dishes for maybe 15 hours a week. The pay was terrible. I was making around $800 a month on a good month. My brothers both had real careers by then. Marcus worked as a project manager for a construction company. He was making around $60,000 a year. David was a sales rep for an insurance company. He pulled in about $50,000 annually. They both moved out years ago and had their own apartments. But I was still living in our childhood bedroom at Mom's house, sleeping in the same twin bed I had since middle school. It was embarrassing for a grown man, but I had a plan. I was teaching myself web design and digital marketing online. Every night after work, I would study YouTube videos and free courses. I was learning HTML, CSS, and how to build websites for small businesses. I saved every dollar I could from my restaurant job. Living at home meant I could put away maybe $600 a month. I was building up money to buy better equipment and maybe rent my own place. The problem was my brothers didn't take my online learning seriously. When they came over for Sunday dinner, they would make jokes about me being a 24-year-old living with Mom. They called me lazy and unmotivated. "Ryan's still playing around on the computer like a teenager," Marcus would say. His voice was always condescending when he talked about my web design studies. "When are you going to get a real job and move out?" David was worse. He would laugh and tell Mom that I was wasting my time. "Nobody's going to pay Ryan to build websites," he would say right in front of me. "He needs to face reality and find steady work." But I kept studying anyway. I built practice websites for imaginary companies. I learned about SEO and social media marketing. I was getting better every week, even though my brothers couldn't see my progress. The night that changed everything was a Friday in October. I remember the exact date because it's burned into my memory. October 18th, 2022. It was raining hard outside. I had been working on a website project in my room when Marcus and David showed up at Mom's house. They said they wanted to talk to me about something important. Mom was visiting her sister that weekend, so we were alone. They sat me down at the kitchen table like they were about to give me an intervention. Marcus had a serious look on his face. David was shaking his head before anyone even started talking. "Ryan, this has gone on long enough," Marcus said. His voice was cold and final. "You're 24 years old and you're acting like a child. This computer hobby needs to stop. You need to get serious about your life." David jumped in next. "We've been talking to Mom about this. She agrees that it's time for you to grow up. You can't live here forever playing around online and working part-time at a restaurant." Then Marcus said the words that destroyed me. "We want you out of this house by tomorrow night. No more computer games, no more web design fantasies. Get a real job and find your own place like an adult." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These were my brothers telling me I had 24 hours to find somewhere else to live. "But I'm saving money and learning skills," I tried to explain. "I'm building toward something real." "Building toward what?" David laughed. Ryan, you're delusional. You're not building anything. You're wasting time and making excuses for being lazy and dependent. That's when the rain started coming down harder outside. I could hear it pounding on the roof. Marcus stood up and pointed toward the front door. Pack your stuff tonight. We want you gone tomorrow. I felt like my world was falling apart. My own brothers were throwing me out with nowhere to go and no money saved for a deposit on an apartment. Have you ever felt completely abandoned by the people who are supposed to love you? That night, I sat in my room packing my few belongings and writing a letter. The final letter I mentioned at the beginning. A letter that almost ended everything for me before my real life could begin. Now let me tell you what happened next. But first, you need to understand how my brothers and I used to be. Because it wasn't always like this. There was a time when we actually cared about each other. When I was little, Marcus and David were my heroes. Marcus was 4 years older than me. David was 2 years older. Back then, that age gap felt huge. But they included me in everything they did. We grew up in a small house on the south side of town. Dad worked at the paper mill. Mom was a cashier at the grocery store. Money was always tight, but we didn't really notice when we were kids. We had each other. Marcus taught me how to throw a football when I was 8. He was 12 and already playing on the middle school team. Every afternoon after school, we would go to the backyard and practice for hours. David showed me how to fix my bicycle when the chain came off. He was patient with me even when I asked a million questions. He never made me feel stupid for not knowing how things worked. We shared a bedroom until I was 14. 2 sets of bunk, beds crammed into one small room. Marcus had the top bunk on one side. David had the top bunk on the other side. I slept on the bottom. At night, we would talk about everything. Our plans for the future. What we wanted to be when we grew up. The girls we liked at school. The games we wanted to play tomorrow. We were a team back then. When I was getting picked on by older kids at school, Marcus and David both stood up for me. They made it clear that nobody was allowed to mess with their little brother. That protection meant everything to me. But things started changing when they got to high school. Marcus became more serious about football and started hanging out with the popular crowd. David discovered he was good at math and joined the academic club. I was still in middle school, and suddenly I felt left behind. My brothers had their own friend groups and activities. They didn't have time for backyard football games or bicycle repair lessons anymore. The shift became more obvious when Marcus started dating Sarah in his junior year. She was pretty and popular, and she didn't like having a middle school kid tagging along when they hung out at our house. David followed Marcus's lead and started bringing girlfriends around too. Both my brothers began treating me like an annoying little kid instead of their teammate. I went from being included to being excluded. When Marcus graduated high school, he got a partial scholarship to play football at the state university. Everyone in our family was so proud of him. He was the first person in our family to go to college. David graduated 2 years later and got accepted to the same university on an academic scholarship. He was going to study business and accounting. Mom cried happy tears at his graduation ceremony. Then it was my turn to graduate high school. But I wasn't the student or athlete that my brothers had been. My grades were average. I didn't play any sports. I had no clear plans for college or career. Marcus and David both came home for my graduation. But instead of being proud, they seemed disappointed. Like they expected more from me than what I had achieved. That stung more than I let them know. After high school, I started working at the restaurant while my brothers finished college. They would come home for holidays and tell stories about their classes, their internships, their bright futures ahead. I felt like I was standing still while they were moving forward with their lives. They had direction and ambition. I was just serving tables and washing dishes without any real plan for my future. That's when I discovered web design and digital marketing. It started as curiosity about how websites worked, but I quickly realized this could be my path to success. Something that was mine, not something I was copying from my brothers. The problem was that Marcus and David couldn't see the potential in what I was learning. To them, it looked like I was playing computer games instead of working toward real goals. They saw it as another sign that I lacked direction. Marcus got his degree and landed the project manager job right after graduation. David got his business degree and started working in insurance sales. Both of them moved into their own apartments and started building adult lives. Meanwhile, I was still at home, still working part-time, still learning web design on my computer every night. From their perspective, I was a 24-year-old who had never grown up or taken responsibility for his life. They started making comments about me needing to mature and get serious. They would tell Mom that I was taking advantage of her kindness by living at home for free while they were paying rent and building careers. But I was building something too. They just couldn't see it yet. I was learning skills that would eventually make me more successful than both of them combined. But that night in the rain, I didn't know that yet. Here's where things took a turn. That Friday night, when Marcus and David told me I had to leave, they weren't finished destroying my confidence yet. What happened next cut deeper than just being kicked out. They attacked the very core of who I was trying to become. After Marcus pointed toward the front door and told me to pack my stuff, I tried one more time to explain my situation. "Look, I know I'm not where you guys are yet," I said, "but I'm learning valuable skills. Web design is a real career path." David stood up from the kitchen table and shook his head. "Ryan, you've been saying that for 2 years now. Where are the results? Where are the clients? Where's the money? All I see is you playing around on a computer." His words hit me like punches to the stomach. "I'm still learning," I tried to explain. "I've built practice websites and I'm getting better every week. I just need more time to find my first real clients." Marcus walked closer to me with anger in his eyes. "Time? Ryan, you're 24 years old. We were both supporting ourselves by your age. You're still living at home like a teenager, making excuses for why you can't grow up." Then he said something that shattered my heart completely. "The truth is, you're lazy and you're scared. You hide behind these computer fantasies because you're afraid of real work and real responsibility. You're embarrassing our family." "That's not true," I said, but my voice was shaking. "I work at the restaurant and I study web design every night." "I'm working harder than you think I am." David laughed coldly. "Working at what?" "Serving tables 15 hours a week isn't a career, Ryan. Learning stuff on YouTube isn't education. You're fooling yourself if you think any of this is going to lead anywhere." But Marcus delivered the killing blow next. "You want to know what really bothers us? You're making Mom worry about you constantly. She lies awake at night wondering what's going to happen to you when she's gone. That's not fair to her." Those words destroyed me more than anything else they could have said. The idea that I was causing Mom stress and worry made me feel like the worst son in the world. I never wanted to burden her with my struggles. "We've tried to be patient with you," David continued, "but patience has limits. You can't live in this house forever pretending you're building a business when you're really just avoiding adult responsibilities." I felt tears starting to form in my eyes, but I fought to keep them back. "I'm not pretending," I said quietly. "I really believe I can make this work. I just need more time to prove it." Marcus shook his head with disgust. "Ryan, successful people don't need years to prove themselves. They show results quickly. The fact that you've been at this for 2 years with nothing to show for it proves you don't have what it takes." Then David said something that broke my spirit completely. "We think you're using web design as an excuse to avoid getting a real job. Deep down, you know you're not smart enough or motivated enough to succeed at anything challenging." The room went silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. I stood there feeling smaller and more worthless than I had ever felt in my life. My own brothers thought I was a lazy failure who would never amount to anything. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said in a calm, final voice. "You have until tomorrow night to find somewhere else to live. No more computer games, no more web design fantasies. Get a full-time job and start acting like a man." David nodded his agreement. "And don't think about coming to us for money or help. We're done enabling your childish behavior. It's time for you to sink or swim on your own." I looked at both my brothers standing there, united against me. These were the same guys who had taught me to throw a football and fix my bike. Now, they were throwing me out in the rain because they had no faith in my dreams. "What if I can't find a place by tomorrow?" I asked desperately. "What if I don't have enough money for a deposit and first month's rent?" Marcus shrugged like it wasn't his problem. "Then you'll figure it out fast. Maybe sleeping in your car for a few nights will motivate you to get serious about finding steady work." The cruelty in his voice shocked me. This wasn't tough love. This was my brother telling me he didn't care if I ended up homeless, as long as I wasn't his problem anymore. David walked toward the front door like the conversation was over. "We'll check with Mom tomorrow night to make sure you're gone. Don't make this harder than it has to be, Ryan." After they left, I sat in the kitchen, listening to the rain get heavier outside. I had less than 24 hours to find a place to live, with maybe $800 in my bank account. No references, no credit history, and no family support. That night, I went to my childhood bedroom and started packing my few belongings into garbage bags. Everything I owned fit into 4 trash bags and 1 suitcase. 24 years of life reduced to what I could carry. But the worst part wasn't the packing. It was the letter I started writing at midnight. That letter I mentioned at the very beginning of my story. The one that almost ended everything before my real life could begin. I sat at my old desk in my childhood bedroom with a piece of notebook paper in front of me. The rain was still pounding on my window. I could hear it getting heavier as the night went on. At the top of the page, I wrote, "To Mom, Marcus, and David." Then I stopped writing and stared at those words for a long time. How do you explain to the people you love why you can't keep fighting anymore? The letter started with an apology. "I'm sorry I was such a disappointment to all of you," I wrote. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the successful son and brother you deserved to have. I'm sorry I caused so much worry and stress." Then I tried to explain how I felt. "I know you think I'm lazy and unmotivated," I continued, "but I was trying my best to build something meaningful with web design. I really believed I could make it work if I had more time and support." Writing those words made me cry for the first time since I was a little kid. 24 years old and crying alone in my bedroom like I was 8 again. Have you ever felt so completely alone that you couldn't stop the tears from coming? "I can't keep fighting when the people closest to me don't believe in me," I wrote. "It hurts too much to wake up every day knowing my own brothers think I'm a failure who will never amount to anything." The hardest part was the next paragraph. "Maybe you'll be happier without me causing problems and taking up space. Maybe Mom will sleep better at night, knowing she doesn't have to worry about her disappointing son anymore." I finished the letter around 2 in the morning. Then I folded it carefully and put it in an envelope. I wrote, "Please read this" on the front and left it on my nightstand where someone would find it. The next day, Saturday, I loaded my 4 garbage bags and 1 suitcase into my beat-up Honda Civic. Everything I owned in the world fit in the back seat and trunk of that car. It was pathetic for a grown man. I spent the day driving around town looking for apartments I could afford. But with only $800 and no rental history, nobody would take me seriously. Every landlord wanted first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. By 5 o'clock that afternoon, I realized I had nowhere to go. I parked my car behind a Walmart and sat there watching families come and go with their shopping carts. Normal people with normal lives and normal homes to return to. That's when the reality hit me. I was about to be homeless. 24 years old with a car full of garbage bags and nowhere to sleep tonight. My own brothers had thrown me out, and I had no friends close enough to ask for help. The rain started again around 7 o'clock. Just like the night before, it came down hard and steady. I turned on my car's engine to run the heater, but I knew I couldn't keep the engine running all night without wasting gas I couldn't afford to replace. I thought about that letter on my nightstand back at Mom's house. By now, she would be home from visiting her sister. Maybe she had found the letter. Maybe she was reading it right now and understanding how much pain I was in. Part of me hoped she would call and tell me to come home. Tell me that Marcus and David were wrong, and that I could keep living there while I figured out my web design career. But my phone stayed silent all evening. Around 9 o'clock, I got out of my car and stood in the parking lot, letting the rain soak through my clothes. I was cold and wet and completely lost. This was supposed to be the lowest point of my life, the moment I gave up completely. But standing there in that rain, something unexpected happened. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, I started getting angry. Not angry at Marcus and David, but angry at the situation. Angry that I had let other people's opinions define my worth. I realized something important while the rain was running down my face. My brothers kicking me out didn't prove they were right about me. It proved they were afraid I might actually succeed and make them look bad for doubting me. That night, I slept in my car behind that Walmart. It was uncomfortable and cold, but it was also the first night I felt truly free from needing anyone else's approval. I was on my own now, which meant I could prove myself without anyone holding me back. The next morning, I drove back to Mom's house to get that letter. Not because I wanted to use it, but because I realized I didn't need it anymore. I had found something more powerful than despair in that parking lot. I had found determination. That first week living in my car taught me things about myself that I never knew before. When you have nothing left to lose, you discover what you're really made of. When nobody believes in you, you learn to believe in yourself. I found a 24-hour laundromat where I could use the restroom and wash my clothes. The attendant there, an older lady named Mrs. Garcia, noticed me coming in every morning around 6. She never asked questions, but she would nod and smile like she understood. I also found a public library that opened at 8 in the morning. That became my office. I would sit at the same computer terminal every day and work on building my web design skills. The librarians knew me by name within a week. My routine was simple but focused. Wake up in my car around 6, clean up at the laundromat, get to the library by 8, work on web design tutorials and projects until 6 in the evening. Find somewhere to park and sleep. Repeat. The first thing I did was build my own professional website. Not a practice site this time, but a real portfolio that showed potential clients what I could do for them. I spent 3 days making it perfect. Clean design, easy navigation, examples of my work. Then I started reaching out to small businesses in town, not big companies that would want established agencies. Small family businesses that needed help getting online but couldn't afford expensive marketing firms. My first real client was Tony's Pizza, a little restaurant downtown. The owner, Mr. Rossi, had been trying to build a website himself, but couldn't figure out the technical stuff. I offered to build it for $300. That $300 felt like winning the lottery. It proved that Marcus and David were wrong about me. People would pay for my web design skills. I wasn't delusional or lazy. I was building a real business. Mr. Rossi was so happy with his website that he told his friend who owned an auto repair shop. Then that guy told his cousin who had a cleaning service. Word started spreading through the small business community. Within a month, I had built websites for 6 different businesses. I was making more money than I ever made at the restaurant, around $1,500 that first month. It wasn't enough to rent an apartment yet, but it was real progress. The library became my second home. I would arrive when they opened and stay until they closed. The staff started saving me the same computer terminal each day. They could see I was working hard on something important. I also started learning about online marketing and social media management. Many of my website clients needed help with Facebook pages and Google Ads too. Every new skill I learned meant more services I could offer. One day while I was working at the library, I ran into Mrs. Peterson from the grocery store where I used to work. She asked how I was doing, and I told her about my web design business. She seemed genuinely impressed. "Ryan, I had no idea you were so talented with computers," she said. "My daughter has a small bakery and she's been wanting a website. Would you be interested in helping her?" That referral led to my biggest project yet. Sarah's Sweet Treats needed a full website with online ordering capabilities. She paid me $800 for that project. I was starting to see real money from my skills. But the best part wasn't the money. It was the confidence I was building. Every successful project proved to myself that I could do this. I wasn't the failure my brothers thought I was. I was an entrepreneur building something meaningful. Living in my car wasn't comfortable, but it taught me things that would help me later. I learned to live on very little money. I learned to focus on what really mattered. I learned that I could survive anything if I stayed determined. After 2 months of sleeping in my car, I had saved enough money to rent a small studio apartment. It wasn't much, just 1 room with a tiny kitchen and bathroom. But it was mine. I had earned it with my own skills and hard work. Moving into that apartment felt like the biggest accomplishment of my life. I remember sitting on the floor that first night, because I didn't have furniture yet, but I felt proud and independent in a way I had never experienced before. I set up a workspace in the corner with a folding table and the laptop I had bought with my web design earnings. That corner became the headquarters of my growing business. I was no longer just surviving. I was building something real. My brothers had no idea what I was doing or how well things were going. As far as they knew, I had disappeared after they kicked me out. They probably assumed I had gotten some minimum wage job and was barely getting by. But I was doing much better than barely getting by. I was creating a life and career that was completely my own. Every day brought new opportunities and new proof that I had been right to pursue web design. 3 months after being kicked out in the rain, I was making $3,000 a month from my web design business. I had 12 regular clients and a waiting list of businesses that wanted to work with me. I was just getting started. But building a business from nothing meant learning to live on almost no money while investing every dollar back into growing my skills and client base. Those early months taught me lessons about discipline and sacrifice that would serve me for life. My studio apartment was tiny but functional. Rent was $400 a month, which left me with $2,600 to cover everything else: food, gas, phone, internet, and business expenses. I learned to stretch every dollar as far as possible. Breakfast was usually a banana and coffee. Lunch was a peanut butter sandwich or ramen noodles. Dinner was whatever I could cook for under $3: pasta, rice, and beans or scrambled eggs. I lost weight but gained focus and determination. I bought a used desk and chair from a thrift store for $50 total. My office setup was basic but effective. That folding table, my laptop, a notepad for sketching website layouts, and a lamp from the dollar store. The library remained my backup office when I needed faster internet or printing services. Mrs. Johnson, the head librarian, would smile when I walked in each morning. She had watched my journey from sleeping in my car to building something real. My client list kept growing through word-of-mouth referrals. Each satisfied customer seemed to know 2 or 3 other business owners who needed websites. Within 4 months, I was working with 15 regular clients and had a waiting list. But my brothers still had no idea what I was accomplishing. As far as they knew, I had disappeared after being kicked out. They probably assumed I was working at another restaurant or living in some rundown place, barely getting by. Sometimes I would drive by Mom's house, hoping to see her car in the driveway. I wanted to tell her how well I was doing and that she didn't need to worry about me anymore. But I never worked up the courage to stop and knock on the door. The hardest part about living alone was having nobody to share my victories with. When I landed my biggest client yet, a law firm that paid me $1,200 for their website, I had nobody to call with the good news. That law firm project taught me about working with professional businesses versus small family companies. Lawyers had higher standards and bigger budgets. They wanted custom designs, professional photography, and ongoing maintenance contracts. I started studying more advanced web development techniques, e-commerce platforms, search engine optimization, online marketing strategies. Every new skill meant I could charge higher prices and attract better clients. 6 months after being kicked out, I was making $4,500 a month consistently. That was more money than I had ever imagined making from web design. But I kept living like I was still broke, saving most of it for future growth. I bought better equipment with my savings, a faster laptop, professional design software, a good camera for taking photos of client businesses. Each investment made my work look more professional and allowed me to charge premium prices. One day, while working at a coffee shop downtown, I overheard 2 women talking about needing a website for their boutique clothing store. I introduced myself and showed them examples of my work on my phone. They hired me on the spot for $800. That interaction taught me about networking and putting myself in situations where I could meet potential clients. I started working from different coffee shops and public spaces where business owners gathered. My reputation in the local business community was growing faster than I could handle. I had to start turning down projects or pushing delivery dates out weeks because I was booked solid with work. But the success felt fragile because I was doing everything myself. One sick day or personal emergency could mess up my entire schedule. I started thinking about hiring help, but I wasn't ready to give up control of my business yet. The ironic part was how much my life had improved since being kicked out. I was making more money, learning faster, and building something meaningful. My brothers had done me a favor by forcing me to become independent, even though that wasn't their intention. I still felt hurt by how they had treated me. The cruel words they said and the way they threw me out without caring where I would sleep. But I was grateful for the motivation their doubt had given me. Every successful project proved them wrong a little more. Every satisfied client was evidence that I wasn't the lazy dreamer they thought I was. I was building a real business that served real people and solved real problems. 8 months after that rainy night, I had 23 active clients, a waiting list of potential projects, and was averaging $5,000 a month in revenue. I was saving almost half that for future business investments. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was personal. I had learned to trust my own judgment instead of needing validation from others. I had proven to myself that I could succeed without family support or encouragement. Nobody could take that confidence away from me ever again. 9 months after being kicked out, my web design business was booming. I was averaging $5,000 a month in income, sometimes more. My client list reached 30 businesses, and people started recommending me outside my city. Around that time, I got my first contract with a national franchise. They wanted me to redesign their local store websites. That deal was worth $8,000 spread across 3 months. It felt surreal for someone who used to sleep in his car. I started investing in marketing. I built a professional website that showed my portfolio, shared customer success stories, and made it easy to request a quote. I focused on making everything simple and clear for visitors. Most of my new leads came from organic search results. Search engine optimization helped my business appear on the first page when people typed web designer near me. That drove a steady stream of new clients each month. I also wrote blog posts about web design tips and digital marketing. My advice started getting shared by other businesses, which brought more traffic to my site. I posted on social media almost every day, showing before and after examples of my projects. Success meant my days were busy. I worked from 8 in the morning until 9 at night most days. Sometimes I barely had time to eat dinner because I was meeting deadlines and helping business owners solve problems. Work was hard, but it felt extremely rewarding. It was getting harder for my brothers to ignore what I had built. Mom started mentioning my accomplishments at family events. One weekend, she congratulated me in front of Marcus and David for getting the franchise contract. Marcus looked surprised, but tried to play it cool. "That's a lot of responsibility, Ryan," he said. "I didn't realize your business had grown so much." David was quieter than usual. He just nodded and kept eating. That night after dinner, Marcus pulled me aside to ask how I landed the contract, so I told him about my process, how I marketed myself, built a strong portfolio, and networked with local business owners. He seemed impressed, but didn't say much. David never asked questions, but he followed me on social media. I noticed his likes and occasional comments on my posts about web design. Maybe he was seeing for himself that I wasn't just daydreaming anymore. A few weeks later, a local newspaper ran a feature on small business success stories. My interview ran with a headline, "Against all odds, Ryan's web design firm delivers big results." The article talked about how I built my business after being homeless and how doubters became believers. Friends and old co-workers started sending me messages about the story. Clients congratulated me and said they were proud to be working with me. Even some of my junior high teachers emailed to say they remembered teaching me and were glad I'd found success. It became impossible for my brothers to keep downplaying what I had built. Marcus finally admitted, "I might have been wrong about you. You clearly know what you're doing." David actually apologized, saying, "I didn't believe you could make it, but I see now that you did." Their apologies were calm, never dramatic. They didn't gush or break down with emotion, but they admitted they'd misjudged me. That meant more to me than any fancy words could have. I accepted what they said, but I didn't let it change me. Success wasn't about getting their approval anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could build a new life and help real clients with real businesses. After that, Marcus offered advice about hiring employees and managing projects. David sent me some resources about business accounting. Both wanted to help, but I kept the boundaries clear. I thanked them and said I'd ask if I ever needed support. My web design firm kept growing. Soon I had to hire part-time help and upgrade my workspace again. Work-life balance became hard, but I was proud to have real ownership over everything I did. Sometimes I met old friends who remembered me as the guy who was kicked out in the rain. When they asked how I bounced back, I told them. I stopped listening to doubt from others and started trusting myself. Success didn't erase what my brothers did to me, but it proved their opinions were just opinions, not facts. My results spoke louder than their words ever could. Now let me tell you what happened when they finally saw how far I'd come. 1 year after being kicked out in the rain, my web design business was bringing in $6,000 a month consistently. I had expanded into digital marketing services and hired 2 part-time contractors to help with projects. The moment everything changed happened at Mom's 60th birthday party. She insisted on having all 3 sons there to celebrate with her. Marcus and David agreed to come, probably expecting to see me still struggling and barely getting by. I arrived at the party in a new Honda Accord. Not flashy, but reliable and professional looking. I wore a nice button-down shirt and dress pants. I looked like a successful businessman, which is exactly what I had become. Mom introduced me to her friends as my son Ryan, who owns his own web design company. I could see Marcus and David watching from across the room. Their expressions showed surprise at how confident and put together I looked. During dinner, Mom's friend Mrs. Williams asked about my business. I explained how I help small companies get online and grow through digital marketing. She seemed impressed and asked for my business card, saying her daughter might need my services. After dinner, Marcus approached me privately. "Ryan, I have to ask, are you really doing as well as it seems?" His voice was different than before. No mockery or condescension, just genuine curiosity and maybe a little respect. I showed him my phone with screenshots of recent client payments, $1,200 from a law firm, $800 from a restaurant chain, $600 from a medical practice. His eyes widened when he saw the numbers. "How many clients do you have now?" Marcus asked. When I told him 37 active clients with a waiting list, he shook his head in amazement. "Ryan, I had no idea your business had grown this much." David joined our conversation a few minutes later. He had been quieter than usual all evening, probably processing what he was seeing. "I owe you an apology," he said simply. "I was wrong about your web design idea. Dead wrong." That admission meant more to me than any dramatic gesture could have. David was acknowledging that he had misjudged me and my potential. It took courage for him to admit his mistake so directly. Marcus nodded his agreement. "We both owe you apologies, Ryan. When we kicked you out that night, we thought we were helping you face reality. But you were already living in reality. We just couldn't see it." I accepted their apologies calmly. "I appreciate you saying that," I told them. "But I'm not doing this business to prove you wrong anymore. I'm doing it because I love helping people solve problems, and I'm good at what I do." The conversation continued for about 30 minutes. They asked intelligent questions about my business model, my marketing strategies, and my plans for growth. For the first time in years, they were treating me as an equal rather than a little brother who needed guidance. Marcus seemed most surprised by my professionalism. You talk about business the way I talk about construction projects, he said. Like you really understand every aspect of what you're doing. That observation showed me how much I had grown personally and professionally. David was impressed by my client retention rate. When I explained that most customers stayed with me for ongoing maintenance and updates, he nodded with respect. That's smart business, Ryan. Building recurring revenue instead of just one-time projects. But the most important moment came when Marcus asked if I was happy with my life now. Honestly, yes, I told him. I wake up every morning excited about the work I'm doing. I'm helping real businesses succeed, and I'm building something meaningful. Their attitudes toward me shifted completely that night. Instead of seeing me as the family failure, they began recognizing me as the family entrepreneur, the brother who had taken the biggest risk and made it work. Mom was the happiest of all. She had watched her sons go from fighting and disrespecting each other to having an adult conversation about business and success. Her smile during our talk was worth more than any client payment I had ever received. When the party ended, both Marcus and David asked if we could get together sometime to talk more about business. They wanted to understand how I had built everything from nothing, and maybe learn from my experience. That night driving home, I reflected on how much had changed in 12 months. I had gone from sleeping in my car, with a final letter, to running a successful business that my brothers respected and admired. But the real victory wasn't their respect or approval. It was the knowledge that I had proven something important to myself, that I could succeed on my own terms without needing anyone else's permission or support. Now let me tell you about setting new boundaries. After that birthday party, where my brothers finally saw what I had built, they wanted to reconnect and be part of my life again. But success had taught me important lessons about respect and healthy relationships. The Monday after Mom's party, Marcus called me. Ryan, could we grab coffee sometime this week? I'd really like to talk more about your business and maybe discuss how we can be better brothers going forward. His tone was respectful, which was completely different from before. I agreed to meet him, but I knew this conversation would set the tone for our relationship in the future. I wasn't the same person who had desperately wanted their approval 18 months ago. Success had given me confidence and clarity about what I deserved from family relationships. We met at a coffee shop downtown on Wednesday evening. Marcus arrived on time and seemed genuinely interested in having an adult conversation. Ryan, I want you to know how impressed I am with what you've accomplished, he started. I was completely wrong about your potential. I appreciated his honesty, but I needed to be clear about my expectations. Marcus, I accept your apology, but I need you to understand that our relationship has to be different going forward. I'm not looking for approval or validation from you anymore. He nodded seriously. I understand that. What would a good relationship look like from your perspective? That question showed me he was genuinely interested in rebuilding our connection, rather than just making himself feel better about the past. I want us to be equals, I told him. Brothers who respect each other's choices and support each other's goals. No more older brother trying to guide the younger brother. No more condescending advice about what I should do with my life. Marcus agreed to those terms immediately. You've proven you don't need guidance from me about business or life decisions. You've actually been more successful than I have in many ways. I'd be honored to have an equal relationship with you. The conversation lasted 2 hours. We talked about business, family, and what we both wanted from our brotherhood going forward. It felt good to finally communicate as adults rather than falling into old family patterns. David reached out a few days later with a similar request. We met for lunch on Saturday, and he was even more direct about wanting to make amends. Ryan, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you respect for proving us wrong so completely. But I had the same message for David. I don't need you to feel guilty about the past. I need you to treat me with respect in the present and future. That means no more jokes about my work, no more suggestions about what I should do differently. David accepted those boundaries without hesitation. You've earned that respect 10 times over. I want to be a brother you can count on, not one who tears you down. His sincerity felt genuine, and I appreciated his straightforward approach. Both conversations included discussions about mom and family gatherings. I made it clear that I wanted to maintain a good relationship with her and be present for important events. But I also expected them to treat me as an equal at family functions. No more comments about my business being risky or uncertain, I told them both. No more suggestions about getting a real job or playing it safe. My choices are my own, and they've worked out well so far. They both agreed to those terms. Marcus even said, "Your business is more stable than my construction job right now. You've got recurring clients and steady income. I should be asking you for career advice, not the other way around." The most important boundary I set was about future crises or challenges. If I ever face problems with my business or personal life, I'll decide whether and when to ask for help. No more interventions or forced conversations about what you think is best for me. Both brothers understood that message clearly. They had learned that their previous tough love approach had been damaging rather than helpful. They committed to supporting me only when I specifically requested their involvement. Over the following months, our relationships improved dramatically. We found a healthy balance between staying connected as family and respecting each other's independence. Sunday dinners became enjoyable again, instead of tense interrogations about my life choices. Marcus started referring potential clients to my web design business. David helped me understand some financial planning concepts that were useful for business growth. But they only offered help when I asked for it, and they never made me feel obligated to accept their suggestions. The best part was seeing how much happier Mom became when her sons got along well. She had been stressed for years, watching us fight and disrespect each other. Now she could enjoy having all 3 sons together without worrying about conflict. Setting clear boundaries had transformed our family dynamic. Instead of the older brothers trying to control the younger brother, we became 3 men who supported each other's goals and respected each other's choices. My success had given me the confidence to demand respect, but more importantly, it had shown my brothers that I deserved it. They couldn't argue with results, and my results spoke louder than any words could have. Now let me tell you about my life today and what I learned from this whole experience. 2 years have passed since that rainy night when my brothers kicked me out. Today, my web design business is thriving beyond anything I could have imagined when I was sleeping in my car. I now run a digital marketing agency with 4 full-time employees and over 60 active clients. Last month, we brought in $12,000 in revenue. I moved into a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment with a home office where I can work comfortably every day. But the financial success isn't the most important change in my life. The confidence and self-respect I built through this journey has transformed how I approach every relationship and challenge. I learned that I don't need anyone else's permission to pursue my dreams. My relationship with my brothers has found a healthy balance that works for all of us. We have regular family dinners where they treat me as an equal. They ask about my business with genuine interest and respect my decisions without trying to give unsolicited advice. Marcus has become genuinely supportive. He refers clients to me and talks proudly about my success to his friends and coworkers. Last month, he asked if I would mentor his teenage son about entrepreneurship. The same man who once told me I was embarrassing our family. David has apologized multiple times for doubting me. He now comes to me for advice about side business ideas he's considering. He's even invested some of his savings into online courses to learn digital marketing skills. Sometimes people can genuinely change when they see real results. But I've maintained clear boundaries with both of them. I appreciate their support, but I don't depend on it for my self-worth anymore. My confidence comes from knowing I can succeed on my own, whether they believe in me or not. The most important lesson I learned is that family should lift you up, not tear you down. If the people closest to you are constantly discouraging your dreams and telling you that you're not good enough, those voices are toxic to your growth. I also learned that sometimes being kicked out of your comfort zone is exactly what you need to discover your true potential. My brother's forcing me to become independent was cruel at the time, but it pushed me to develop skills and confidence I never would have found otherwise. When young people ask me for advice about pursuing their dreams despite family doubt, I tell them this: your worth is not determined by other people's opinions of you, even if those people are your family. Believe in yourself first, and the results will eventually speak louder than any criticism. I've helped several young men who were in similar situations to mine. Guys whose families didn't support their business ideas or career choices. I mentor them the early challenges and remind them that success is the best response to doubt. My business continues to grow every month. We specialize in helping small businesses build their online presence and attract customers through digital marketing. Every client success story reminds me why I love this work so much. Last month, I hired my former coworker from the restaurant where I used to work part-time. She was struggling to make ends meet, and I offered her a position doing social media management for our clients. Helping people find opportunities feels as good as building my own success. The hardest part of this journey wasn't the financial struggles or sleeping in my car. It was learning to ignore the negative voices in my head that sounded like my brother's criticism. Building self-confidence when your own family doesn't believe in you takes tremendous inner strength. But overcoming that challenge taught me something valuable about resilience. When you prove to yourself that you can succeed despite the odds, you develop unshakable confidence. Nobody can take that away from you once you've earned it. I still have that final letter I wrote on my darkest night. It sits in my desk drawer at home, not as a reminder of how close I came to giving up, but as proof of how far I've traveled from that broken place to where I am now. Sometimes I think about the scared 24-year-old who was packing garbage bags in his childhood bedroom. I wish I could tell him that everything he hoped for would come true, just not in the way he expected. The pain would lead to purpose. The rejection would lead to resilience. My advice to anyone facing similar family rejection is simple. Don't let other people's lack of vision limit your possibilities. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love and support you are the ones holding you back. It's okay to outgrow their expectations and build something bigger than they can imagine. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it encourages you to keep fighting for your dreams, especially when the people around you don't believe in them yet. If you are still here and enjoyed this story, please like this video. It really helps me know you want more content like this. If this story gave you some hope or inspiration, please share it with your friends or someone who needs to hear this message. If you have any questions or suggestions about this story, please type them in the comments below. I love reading what you think about these experiences. If you want more stories like this one, please subscribe to this channel. There are many more comeback stories coming your way. Remember, sometimes the people closest to you hurt you the most, but you can still rise above and build the life you deserve without them.